All right. Good afternoon, and it could be good morning depending on where you are in the country. But welcome to our webinar presentation. We have a very exciting topic today. It's on unlocking the power of Excel with Sage Intacct reporting and more. And joining me, we have a team here, a special guest from Velixo. I have Christian. I'm gonna curl the R, okay? Guri, and who is the partner account manager with Velixo, as well as Jim Norton, who is the senior product manager with Velixo. And welcome, my name is Bulin Tran. I'm a senior VP of Financial Solutions with JMT Consulting. Just a really quick background. I am located in the DC area. Spent my entire careers supporting and serving nonprofits with their supporting their back office accounting operations, leveraging financial systems, various financial systems, including Sage Intacct. And I'm going to ask Christian and Jim if maybe you can just do a quick intro as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Christian Gary, partner account manager at Velixo, based in Toronto, Canada. And I've been at Velixo just over 3 months, and I'm very excited to present Velixo today to everyone here in this webinar.
Thanks. And my name is Jim Norton. I'm a senior product manager at Velixo. I've also been here about 3 months, and I have spent most of my career on your all side of the table, working in nonprofit. In fact, worked with various accounting systems. I've been a controller and CFO on the nonprofit side, and excited to show you all what we do.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we have some housekeeping here. If you have questions, please submit your questions in the question box in your control panel, and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. But if I see them coming in, we're happy to address them during the presentation as well. Today's recording and slides will be emailed to you following the presentation. Next slide, please. So this presentation is CPE accredited. Your presentation today may earn you 1 CPE credit. To receive a CPE credit, you need to actively respond to polling questions 3 out of the 4. Complete the survey that will pop up at the end of the webinar and stay for the duration of the webinar. If you have technical issues, please indicate in the chat or email to the email address there. All right, so really a quick, just an introduction on who we are, JMT. JMT was founded in 1991 to help nonprofits achieve their mission. We work exclusively with nonprofit organizations, and as you can see here, we are headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. We serve over 2,000 nonprofits across the U.S. and a few in Canada, supporting nonprofits back office accounting operations, leveraging financial systems and accounting services. Next slide, please. So in terms of our services, I'm just going to go through it fairly quickly. So we are a partner with Sage and as well as MIP. So we implement and support a cloud-based solution, Sage Intacct. We also support MIP as well. Both are very popular when in the nonprofit sector. We implement and support budget management solution as well. And provide outsourced accounting services, perform accounting operation assessment work, assist with system integration as well as grant management. I will also say that we're talking about Velixo. We also support various reporting solutions, including Velixo. Next slide, please. All right, learning objective. we're here to learn why out-of-the-box reporting tools may not fully meet donor-specific and financial reporting needs. And these out-of-the-box solutions could be Sage, but it could be other solutions as well. I just didn't want to just focus on Sage Intacct, although I suspect a lot of the folks who are attending this presentation are Sage Intacct users, but there could be other users, folks attending that are using other systems as well. We are also going to talk about how Velixo's bi-directional integration enable users to generate dynamic report in Excel while also pushing data back into Sage Intacct for improved financial management. So that's one of the focus is really talking about a tool like this. Not only is it used to pull data, but also be able to push data back into the system, which is very powerful. And then lastly, explore how Velixo simplifies financial reporting, improves data accuracy, and boosts productivity by leveraging the familiarity and flexibility of Excel and its bi-directional integration with Sage. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to hand this this presentation over to Christians and learn more about Velixo.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Yeah, so Velixo, what is Velixo? Velixo, it's a live Excel-based reporting solution. And just to give you a bit of background on Velixo, Velixo was founded in 2017 by our founder, Gabriel Michaud. And, you know, back then, when everything started, even prior to that, Gabriel was also working in the RP space in product development. And during demos, he kept hearing the same feedback over and over from customers where they were facing challenges when exporting to Excel. And every time they had to create a new report. So he really came up with the idea of building that live connection between Excel and ERP system. And that's how Velixo started. So today we are the #1 app on the Sage marketplace from a reporting solution standpoint. We have over 2,700 customers across the globe, and we're present in 26 countries. And if there's anything I want to leave today with you is we take a really great pride of our global customer support, and we typically take action when we receive a request from anyone in the world to help with anything that's been requested. Okay, so if you or your team have any questions, we really action those requests in 24 hours. So one thing I want to mention is we're a multi-award winner, and we currently have a 4.9 star review on the G2 platform. Next slide, please. So let's talk about nonprofits, right? And no matter what tools we try, we always seem to end up using Excel. And why? Just because, nonprofits, like many companies, rely on data. And we have to show that data in lots of different ways and formats for different people. But when systems don't connect well, it means that we're spending a lot of time updating and reformatting things by hand, which, kind of leads to human errors most likely. Next slide, please. And here is going to be our first polling question. And the question is, which reporting tool do you use most often? And you have 5 options to select.
It looks like 2 of those 5 options are Excel. So there's the Excel manual export, and then we've got the Excel with a reporting add-in. And is that reporting add-in like a connection to like another system, Christian?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Okay.
Excellent.
Awesome. So that's some good feedback in the results. native reports is about half the audience, a little bit less, a little bit more than half is doing Excel with manual exports. So thank you everybody for that. Okay.
And now, we're going to talk about some of the challenges that nonprofits experiment. And the challenge number one is, there is lots of different reports needed. So we have to share financial information with many people, like program managers, funders, board members, government agencies. Each one wants all those reports in a different way, which means really extra work for you and really more chances to make mistakes. The number two challenge that we've seen is grants are complicated. Grants often last several years and don't match up with other budget year. That makes it hard to plan ahead, especially if our systems are inflexible. So keeping things accurate can feel like a full-time job. The next challenge is lots of rules to follow. We have to track how money is allowed to be used, report revenue the right way, and split up expenses properly. On top of that, there are strict accounting rules we have to follow, like the ASC 606. And the last challenge is there's not enough people or time. Most nonprofits don't have a lot of bandwidth and don't have big finance teams. We're expected to handle a lot, but with fewer staff and limited resources. So it's constant challenge to keep up. Next slide, please. And here are some of the features and benefits of Velixo. And this is where we shine, and that's where Jim will show you after we'll be doing the demo. But I'm gonna highlight just few. One, Velixo, it's an Excel add-in. Really, the installation is very seamless. You will see you can get this done through the add-in section in Excel. And in seconds, you get Velixo installed without the need of doing any implementations and anything like that. Two, we do offer real-time reporting. Okay, the data you will get in every report when you refresh it, it's gonna be in real time. There's no data warehouses or anything like that that's gonna delay on how your data is gonna be served to you. None of that with Velixo. Three, we are fully integrated with Sage Intacct, which is very important in terms of security and in terms of how we keep that data consistent, secure, but also in line with your user permissions. Let's say if you have specific user permissions and specific access levels within Sage Intacct, we're gonna mimic that, we're gonna mirror that within Velixo. As Bulin mentioned earlier on, we're fully bi-directional, which means you can bring data and push data back into Sage Intacct. And what happens with ERP, sometimes you need to knock the door to your IT team to get support to help you build those reports. The good thing with Velixo, because it's an environment that you're already very comfortable with, which is Excel, it will be very easy for you to create those reports. And we'll highlight some other features during the demo. The
Hey,
next slide,
Christian,
please, Jim.
I just wanted to mention one thing that you mentioned, that when you push data back, it's based on that user security, what that user security has within that ERP system, right? Sage Intacct. So if that person has access to, let's just say, accounts payable, but not general ledger, they would not be able to push like a journal entry through because that person does not have access to the general ledger. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. Right. So
That's
it 100% mirrors their user or role permissions in Sage Intacct. Right. So they could go as far as preparing something inside of an Excel file, but they would not be able to actually write it back. Yep.
That's great to know.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you,
Sure.
Bulin. Okay, and I think we can go on the next slide.
Okay. Here we go.
Yes, and really, here are some of the common use cases that nonprofit organizations are solving with Velixo. Okay, I'm just gonna mention a few of them. Again, we're gonna send a deck later,
Oh, sorry,
but
it's
we can
advancing on me.
do.
I'm not doing this, I promise. Okay, there we go.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
So, some use cases could be, for example, budgeting, planning, creating, updating budgets, and planning for the future, tracking money in and out. So keeping track of revenue, expenses, and making sure that everything is split correctly. And another one very typical in the NFP space is the managing grants. So tracking grant money, making sure that it's billed and reported the right way. Another one I want to highlight is the handling net assets. So keeping records of restricted funds and how they're used and when they are released.
I also want to mention one other thing. So you have consolidation as item number 2, and I think that Jim, you and I connected, I think a couple of maybe about 2 months ago, where we talked about consolidation, including the multi-currency consolidation, meaning that depending on what your needs are for global consolidation, that this is a tool that may be able to meet that needs as well. I think you and I kind of spoke about that.
Right, right, exactly. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, essentially we're in Excel, so anything you can do in Excel, you can do with Velixo.
Yeah, and the
So
reason I
yeah.
mentioned global consolidations is
Mhm.
because there's a lot of like, nonprofits are smaller size, but they operate internationally. And
Sure,
it's a bit of a challenge to do consolidation because it's a pretty expensive SKU from a Sage Intacct perspective to do global consolidation. And so if this tool can handle your needs, that's something
sure,
to think about.
sure. Yeah, and there are certain things because I implemented Sage Intacct for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't even remember, but global consolidations does sometimes make your environment behave differently, and sometimes there may be changes in your environment that you don't want, right? So it's just another option for sure.
And I
Great.
think now
Anything
we
else
can,
on this, Christian?
no, that will be all. I think now we can go on the next polling question.
Okay.
And the question is, which of the following accounting or reporting tasks do you find most time consuming?
I probably should have given you a
Is
multi-check
there an
box for
option
this.
for is there an option for like all of the above?
I didn't put one. I should have. Yeah, or like a multi-check box because I can
Yeah,
imagine it could be hard to pick one. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How are the numbers showing?
Nothing yet. Here we go.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so this is good. All right, so the number one, this is not too surprising, but number one is the unique report formats for different constituents. So we have 64% of our audience there, 27%. So the next one is report on unique time periods. And then the other one is mass updating data. So about 9% of our audience came in with that. So great. Well, spoiler alert, those are all things that you're about to see. So that gets to my part, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's your turn
Okay.
now, Jim.
All right, thanks. I'm going to take notes on how you did that, Christian, because you do it so much more briefly than I did. Okay. So I'm going to switch gears now to my presentation, and I get the fun part of showing you some live show and tell. So I'm looking forward to showing you here how we go deep into the areas that are uniquely challenging for nonprofit and solve problems that eat away at our time and energy. And we believe at Velixo that flexibility is not a feature, but a necessity. And today we're going to show you how that plays out. Okay. So what we're going to do as we go through today, 4 key buckets, right? So we're going to start out looking at some very basic, important concepts. From there, I'm going to build a report live in front of you with zero safety net to show you how easy it is and reinforce that. After that, we're going to see some more tailored examples, including some of the pre-built templates that we have for nonprofit that you could just take and run with. And then finally, we're going to see some examples of bi-directional integration and action, where we not only take data from Intacct, but push it back directly from Excel without even leaving your worksheet. And as Bulin mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, there's a variety of ERP systems that we work with, right? So Sage Intacct is the one that I happen to have this set up with today, but there are others. So to start, the very basic concepts, they're important. I'm going to try to go through them quick because we're going to get to them and kind of hit them again right away in some tangible examples. The first one is, how does one set up Velixo? And that process takes about a minute. All right, so we're at an add-in. We are rather an add-in in the add-in store right inside Excel. So I simply go to my add-ins in the Excel ribbon, and I would click on more add-ins, pretend I don't already have it and it's not staring at you. And from the store here, I would just search for Velixo. And it's waiting there for you, right? So you would just go ahead and click add. Now that adds Velixo to your ribbon. The first time that you've added Velixo to your ribbon, then you're going to notice that you've got a button like this in the top corner of your Excel environment that has our nice shiny logo. And what you do is you just click our logo and it opens up what's called our connection manager. So the last part of finishing your setup for Velixo is clicking add, which will open the ability for you to add a connection to your ERP. And in this case, I'll pretend I'm adding another connection, right? So I can pick my ERP. You notice we do support multiple and there's more coming to this list, but I'm going to stay on Sage Intacct for now. And we give our connection a friendly name, which is just a name I can recognize. And then I put in my same credentials that I use to log into Intacct. So my company ID, my user ID, and my password. Yes, we also support SSO. So if you prefer to use SSO or single sign-on, you can sign in with Sage Intacct. And if your company's then using single sign-on, then we'll pick that SSO up from there. So either option is possible. And we do have the option to remember your credentials. Now, if you're doing that, Velixo is not holding your information. That information is only stored locally. Once you've done that part, and you see this green check mark, the entirety of the setup that you need for Velixo is done. There's nothing else you have to do from a setup perspective. You're ready to just start using the solution. And you have a live connection at this point with your ERP as soon as this check mark is there. The first thing you'll see once your connection is set up is that you have this ribbon that says Velixo NX. And in this ribbon, you're going to see several buttons that are made available as a result of our add-in being in your Excel environment. I'm not going to talk about every single one, but I'm going to call out some of the highlights, and then we're going to see some that are just going to be in action. Right, so we have a refresh button in the ribbon. The refresh button allows you to update your data in real time at any point you want, right? So you could do a refresh. If, say, somebody's made a change in the ERP and you haven't closed and opened the file, this is basically your refresh for any changes that have been made while you still have the file open. Natively, we have what we call a smart refresh, which means we just pick up whatever changes have happened since last time. We're not doing a whole entire query of your database over and over again. You can do a full refresh if you want to, which is a little bit slower because that dumps everything and starts it over again. You also have here our write backs. We're going to see some write back in action, of course, in a little bit. The write back is where we send our data to Intacct, right? So we can perform the write back directly from the ribbon. We have some pre-built templates for you to do write backs, right? So we have templates already defined, which will open a new tab in your Excel. So you could do a journal entry, so you can do a budget, so you can do a project forecast, or what we call our universal write back, which means literally anything else in your ERP that you want to be able to add or edit or make changes to. That's what universal write back is. So anything that can be touched by the API, we can let you make changes to directly from Excel. The freeze button here lets you temporarily disable any Velixo functions. So say that you're working with a team member who doesn't have a Velixo license. If you use this freeze, you could share your Excel file with them, collaborate with them on the file, and it won't matter that they don't have Velixo access. And then when you get the file back, unfreeze does just the opposite. You can then have Velixo normal functionality resume. Freeze is also a great way if you just want to like halt the live flow of data because maybe you're going to do like a soft close or something like that. And then the snapshot button is a way to strip formulas out of the workbook entirely. So if you wanted to create a snapshot, but basically hide all your calculations from somebody, you could use the snapshot to send them a copy of the workbook that either strips out Velixo formulas or strips out all the formulas, including native Excel formulas, and distribute it to them as just raw data. Sometimes people like to send that, to like banks, for example. So with that being said, I bet you're ready to see some action, right? So since we completed the Velixo setup in about 60 seconds, we're ready to put it to work. I want to create an account ending balances report. And to lay the foundation, I need my account numbers. And almost as if I planned it, we have an insert chart of accounts button right here in the ribbon. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click insert chart of accounts. I'm going to pick the connection that I want to pull my chart of accounts from and click insert. And just like that, my chart of accounts has been pulled live from my ERP instance. So that's step one to building my report. Now, my next building block, of course, is I need my account names because my report consumers don't have my GL codes memorized and they want to see the name. Well, Velixo 101 is that we are a function-based solution, which means you have functions in Excel and you know how to use those functions. You know how to use a sum, you know how to use a VLOOKUP, and things like that. Well, Velixo simply adds functions to Excel, and you work with them just like any other Excel function. You put in the function, you put in the arguments, and you get your results. So let's say, for example, I want to look up my account name. Well, all of our Sage Intacct functions in this case start with SI, and I'm going to look for the account name. And then just like all of our regular Excel functions, it starts telling me what are the arguments I need, right? So I need my connection name. Now remember, we assigned our connection name when we created the connection manager. I like to cheat and just put my connection name in the top of my sheet so I can reference it. And then I need my account. Well, my account is right over here, so I'm just going to reference it there. And I'm going to go ahead and just fix this reference real quick. And my account name is pulled from the ERP, and I'll just let that formula fill on down. So I've got now my account name. And then last but not least, I want my closing balances. And as you may not be surprised to hear, we have a function for that too. All right, so if I look for SI, I want my closing balance. Another technique some people like to use, and I recommend this for regular Excel too, by the way, this little function button that's in your formula bar actually is like a help wizard that's built into Excel, right? And it works the same way, whether you're on Mac or you're on Windows, it gives you this kind of help context that tells you what the formula is looking for. And the same is true of Velixo functions. We have that same help context spelled out, right? So for everything that you're going to put in, it's going to tell you this is what I want, right? So here we go. I'm going to pull my connection name. I'm going to pull, I'm not using an account group, but I am using an account number. So I'm going to pull that from here. I'm going to pull my from date, which is right up here, my to date, which is right here. I'm looking for a particular location, which in this case, I have my location ID here. And then I'm not going to put anything else, but just so you know, our functions do allow you to filter by any of your different reporting books, all of your standard dimensions, and any user-defined dimensions that you might be using. So we don't have any limitations regarding standard or user-defined dimensions within Velixo. And then we're going to go ahead and just say we're done. And just like that, it's retrieved the closing balance as of 12/31/21. Now I'm going to go ahead and just fix some cell references because there's something I'm going to do in a minute that may blow people's mind and drop that formula down. My account ending balances report is done. Or so I thought, but as we know in the life of nonprofit, I distributed this report. One of my report consumers came back to me and said, well, I really wanted a comparison to prior year and I wanted the difference column too. And rather than telling them, well, you should have just told me that in the first place, I say, okay, no problem, because I built this in Excel and it's going to be very easy to add. So all I have to do is take column D, copy it, and paste it into column E and change my dates. So 1/1/20, 12/30/120. And this is now just going to refresh and it's going to pull my closing balances for the previous year. And while it is off and calculating that, I'm going to go ahead and put in my formulas for the difference, so that's done. I'll put in my formula here for the difference, which is a plain old Excel formula, which is that minus that. Let that copy down. I'll call this column difference. And I will hijack this formatting and paste it on over. And I have their request, and that took me probably under 60 seconds. Now, the last thing that I'll call out on this particular report is, I don't know about you, but I'm very obsessive about having zeros wasting space on my report, right? So rather than you having to manually sit there and figure out which rows you want to hide, I'm just going to highlight my whole range here of my numbers. And in our Velixo ribbon, we have a button that says hide 0 rows. And I want you to auto hide 0 rows in the selected range. And it's just gone ahead and condensed that. Now, what that means, though, is it's a smart auto hide. So if something pops in when I change a filter, so let's say, for example, I change this to 12/31/22 and numbers start to have balances, there's going to be rows popping back in when they have balances or activity. And you notice this report got bigger, right? So it's smart in that way. All right. Anything in the Q&A or chat before I move to my next topic here?
We don't have a question, but I have a question if I could ask a question.
Sure.
So this is beautiful, by the way, Jim. This is you're able to pull this create this report so quickly. And you can see that rows 2 to 4 is your filter, and on the location 1000, is it possible that we don't use the number but use location by name? Just because in some of the organizations, they may have multiple locations, and when this goes out, people might not be aware of what is location 1000. I think the name would be easily interpreted.
Totally. Yeah, you're leading me into some of our next examples, which is going to show we actually have drop-down lists where you're going to be able to pick them live from your environment.
Oh, that would be great.
And
I just assumed that if you wanted to slice and dice this report, you would just add additional rows or location. It could be departments, it could be grants, it could be any of these other dimensions as well.
Exactly.
That you can filter that, right?
I have some reports where I have, 10, 12 different rows because I want to filter by every single dimension. It's really as much as you want to. Yep.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think I did see something pop up. Oh, I see a couple of Q&As pop up. Okay. Okay, great. She just got it. We answered that.
Oh, someone just asked the same question that I did.
Yep. Absolutely. No dimension is off limits is the short answer. Yeah. Okay, very good. So I'm going to stop there for the basics because I want to show you then, and this actually is going to address that up front too, right? So you see now in this next template example I'm going to show, we start to have drop downs, of our different dimension values, and we start to be able to create groups and things of that nature. And we have all our different dimensions here. Some of these are user defined as well. Right. So basically on the shoulders of Velixo's capabilities and on the shoulders of Excel, we pre-built a bunch of templates for our users. And these templates really are just that. They're templates. We built them to be as easy as possible, and we built them to be malleable. Right. So the idea is that you can use them as is. You can use them as inspiration and tailor them the way that you like them. Or you could say, you know what, I don't want to use them at all because I get it and I can make my own. And whatever works best for you is totally fine. Now, one set of templates that we've built is our Velixo for Nonprofit solution. And we do have a slide on that towards the end. And it's a pre-built pack of files that addresses various different nonprofit stakeholders. It covers financial reporting, program reporting, grant reporting, different tools to help you update. And it's built with hyper focus on flexibility because flexibility is not an option, right? It's necessities as far as we're concerned. So that being said, this particular one is the statement of financial position, which, as we all know, every nonprofit has one, and this is our equivalent of the balance sheet in the nonprofit world. Common features you're going to see in all of our nonprofit financial reporting templates. You're going to see these filtering capabilities that we have up top for all relevant dimensions, whether they're standard dimensions, they're user-defined dimensions, they're going to be here. You're going to be able to rename them, by the way, right? So whether it's the standard dimension is called location and you want to call it something else, it does not matter. We will take the name from your Intacct environment. We will also let you rename it over and above that, just in case you don't like what's in your Intacct environment. And you're also going to see book filtering. So I know in nonprofit, a lot of times we get into user-defined books, right? Sometimes people use cash and accrual. So for whatever types of books you might have, you can filter by book. We can also combine books, right? And there's strategies for doing that. And then, of course, we're going to have date filters, and these date filters can get very flexible. The statement of financial position is pretty basic with a date filter, but there's other reports where you want to just be able to put a start and end date, right? And we give you that so that it's easy to do. Or we want it to be grant driven, and you can have it be grant driven. You're also going to see an option tab. Every template is going to have its own option tab, and the options may be different depending on how complex the template is. And in the case of the statement of financial position, the key thing is we let you choose what dimension am I using to track net asset restriction. And there's going to be a drop down of the different dimensions that exist in my Sage Intacct environment as they're named in my Sage Intacct environment, because we know not everybody is using the same one. And we're not going to make that assumption and force it on you, right? So you make that choice and the template will respond to you. You're also going to be able to toggle these books on and off, because just because you're using them in Intacct doesn't mean that you necessarily want to use them in your templates, right? So we give you that freedom and flexibility. We also are automatically going to sync all of your standard and user-defined dimensions and your books and GL accounts, account groups, reporting periods, so that they're usable for you without you having to do anything. So effectively, the minute that you download a template and you connect via this connection manager, that sync is going to happen right away. And it's going to pull all of that in so that this template is immediately working with your data. And you're going to see, for example, hey, here's all the things from my particular environment. So I have a long list of all my dimensions. I can create groups of my dimensions with different logic that we have in Velixo and group them the way that I want to without having to go and create a bunch of dimension groups necessarily in Intacct. So there's a ton of flexibility there. You're also going to see the terminology tab. And the terminology tab, as I mentioned, is kind of that additional layer of flexibility above and beyond the terminology that you may have defined in Sage Intacct, right? So for example, if I call this dimension site in Sage Intacct, but I want to call it program site in my template for whatever reason, I just go ahead and type the name that I want to use for it in my template. And that affects my template and my template only. That's not going to go back to Intacct, because that might send shockwaves through your organization if you change a dimension name and people are used to coding with it. But for the purposes of using it inside your template, it will rename it right there for you so that it's totally tailored to how you want it to look. That can also be useful if something is named a different way for a funder, right? So you've got that. There's going to be a control tab, which is a reconciliation. The control tab here, for example, this is going to make sure that we've tied out, right? So we look at the data raw from Intacct, compare that to what we've got on the report, make sure that there are no discrepancies here. Now, on this control tab, one thing I'm going to call out quickly is the way that we can pull data. So when you looked at the last report I built with the account balances, it was a simple listing of GL accounts balanced for each account. Well, there's a lot of different flexible ways that you can pull and group data in Velixo. One of those ways being, I can use what we call a range expression. So rather than having to list out every individual GL account, I could just put, here's the beginning of my range, here's a colon, and here's the end. And that's going to pull the entire range of GL accounts in there. So I've defined my assets as anything from 1,000 to 1,999. But I have other options. I could say, my asset accounts are actually 1,000 through 1,099, semicolon, 1,100 through 1,199. So the semicolon acts like a comma. And in fact, the comma is another option. I just like semicolon better, right? And you can just hit enter. Now, of course, this is not my true asset range, so I have a giant discrepancy, right? But it's another way of pulling data. Another thing you have, it's very obvious that my asset range here starts with 1, right? So I could just say 1, and then we use what we call a Velixo wildcard. So 1, question, 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 hit enter, and that's going to pull any GL account that starts with a 1 and pull the balances, right? So lots of flexible ways to pull your data. This concept applies not just to filtering GL accounts. Say you're filtering a dimension list or saying these are the dimensions I want to pull. You might say any dimension ID that starts with a 1 or starts with something, and you can filter that way. So it applies broadly within Velixo. And that same concept may be very useful to you when you're modifying what you want to see on the rows of our template. Because natively, our templates are built with the quick start categories out of the box. And for those of you who work with Sage Intacct, this might be a moment where you groan, and I get it. But the quick start categories are there because they're common, right? And they could be a starting point for people that will turn on immediately. But we know that flexibility is a necessity. So if you need to be agile in adjusting these, it's very easy to do that. Basically, anything that's in blue here, you can go ahead and make changes. Say, for example, I don't like having a line for prepaids because it's not material for me. And we'll pretend that this is allowed by GAAP, even though it's not, right? So let's say that I went and I took prepaids and lumped it in with other assets, which is in my non-current section. And all I have to do is put a semicolon and say, you know what, prepaid expenses is going to go on the same line as other assets. And I've now combined that. And then, of course, I would delete it from this prepaid line up here. So that's a way to just group together a couple categories. Or I could say, you know what, I don't want to use my categories or account groups at all. I just want to define it by GL account numbers. So it should be 1,400 to 1,499. And it's going to give me an error because I have two things here, right? But if I get rid of prepaid expenses there, it's going to pull that balance. Now, it's probably not my real prepaid range, but, the idea is you can use whatever approach works for you and define flexibly. And you can mix and match those approaches without having to create a million account groups. So as I review the report, I may have questions about what goes into a number, right? So let's say, for example, what's in my accrued liabilities? Well, I don't have to go back to Intacct to look that up. I can either right click or I can go to my Velixo NX ribbon when I'm on the cell and select drill down and click on drill down. And when I click on that drill down, I'm going to see that right now it's figuring out what makes up that number. And it's actually going to create another tab on my sheet that gives me the details of what's inside that number. And this is going to show me what we call our first level of drill down. So here's the multiple accounts that make up that line. Here's the debits and credits. I could drill further. So let's say what's in accrued salaries payable, what transactions made that up. So I'll click on view transactions there. This is going to pull still all in Excel, all the different transactions that hit that account. Now at this point, I may want to look at a particular transaction. Even though I can expand and see all the dimensional detail and everything that went into it, I might still want to know, hey, what was this payroll expenses from July? So if I click on view batch, now at this point, it's actually taking me over, opening up a window in my browser and taking me to the Intacct transaction. So I could see here, oh, it was this entry in Intacct that made up that number. So we're that deeply integrated that actually that hyperlink takes you all the way back over to Intacct. All right. So we talked about reporting data in. Now the other part that we promised here was getting data or pushing data back out, right? Or getting into Intacct. So one way that we can do that, and I think a way that's very applicable for y'all, Christian had mentioned our net asset tracking and roll forward, right? So we do have a pre-built within our template net asset roll forward report. And that report is a multi-purpose tool. It actually will not only let you review your net asset roll forward schedule, but then it will do the release from restriction for you, right? So it's going to take this number that has our expenditures, and then we've got our tab here that says purpose release. And it's going to walk us through the process to go ahead and release that revenue from restriction, right? So on our purpose release tab, it's going to remind me, here's the scope of what I'm releasing. Very good information for auditability. We're also going to be able to make a selection here. What dimensions do I care about having in my release from restriction entry? Because not everybody wants as much detail. Let's say, for example, I don't want my customer funder dimension. You see down here, I have my rows that are going to end up in my entry. If I say, you know what, I don't want to include the customer funder dimension, that's gone. It is dropped from my entry. Right. So I've reviewed that. I'm going to go ahead and collapse this because I'm done. And now we're in what we call a write back, right? And this is modeled after our write back templates. And here we have the header section of our journal entry, which shows us the header information. So what journal are we using? What's the posting date? What's the description of the entry? And then here we have our lines, which are the different lines of the entry. So what this template is doing, and we didn't really have to do anything to make it happen, it's pulling every combination of expenses that, or dimensions rather, that had expenses for the period, and the amount of expenses that have not yet been released for that period. The only thing that you have to do is in fact optional, right? So you can add a memo if you want to for the entry. And if you want to override and say, you know what, I want to release a different amount, or I don't want to release this amount at all, you could put an amount here. Otherwise, the user comes into this tab, goes to our ribbon, and clicks on perform write back for the current sheet. And it's going to take these amounts for expenditure. It's going to do that journal entry right now. Notice that it's going to be in pending status, but we're now going into Intacct. And the journal entry for the release has been prepared for us, and it's in Intacct. At this point, I have it. I've selected for it to draft first. It's an option to just let it post right away, right? But I've selected for it to draft first because I like to control things, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and click post. And that entry is going to be posted in Intacct. Now the 360 part of it, because remember we said bi-directional. So now that this has been posted, I'm going to go ahead. We see that the lines have been uploaded. I'm going to go ahead and refresh my sheet here. So I'm going to refresh the current sheet. And you're going to see that these expenditure amounts, because this is only showing me my unreleased amounts. So watch them drop to 0 when the refresh is complete.
Hey, Jim,
Uh-huh.
question. This is
Yep.
Amazing, by the way. So for this report, would it be possible that, we could pull in, for a grant that, has expenditures,
Hmm.
on a monthly basis, be able to see, okay, here's the amount that I could release, available for release. And this
Hmm.
is the amount that I've incurred. And they would put into the override if the amount that is available for release is less than the amount, let's just say the amount for release is $2,000, but you've incurred $3,000, right? So, so the amount that would be released is $2,000. So you can see that my total expenditure is 3,000, but the amount that I could only release is 2,000 because that's all that I have available for release.
Yeah, I see totally what you're saying. I think that's easily a customization that could be made to the template.
Yeah.
Because the field is there for that override, and that was kind of my thought behind putting it there, was so that capability would exist.
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
way you don't have to have the human eye of looking at overriding
right,
it.
right,
The system will tell you that
right,
you're limited to that amount because that
right.
was you've hit the maximum on the award amount.
Yep, totally. I could see that. Yeah.
I think that would
It's
make this really, even more robust if we can incorporate that
yeah.
into this.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's something that we thought about, that, and that may come in like a additional version of this report in the future. There's a lot of things we probably would talk about around that, because the first thing I also wonder is, like, what if somebody knows like there's more coming, right? And they want to release it. So many what ifs. But yeah, I would love to talk about that case. Yeah. So yeah, then you see, once the refresh is done, tRNA is automatically up to date as well, right? So all of that is kind of that 360 view. And the last thing I'll touch on briefly here, I want to give Christian like at least 2 minutes to talk about that last slide, is we've got our universal write back, right? So, a lot of times in nonprofit, if I go back to my starter tab here, we use something called dimension relationships in Sage Intacct, right? Where that's basically saying, you can only use, and in this example, uh, this department or this set of departments is only valid with this location, for instance. And we use that because people code things wrong, and we want to put some controls around that. But updating those natively in the UI can be kind of painful. A lot of times it's manual, and it's kind of just begging to be updated in Excel. All right, so it's something that I went and just made myself a little tool to do it, just for the purposes of our time together today. And the reason we could do this is in Velixo, we have the ability to query any data from the API. We have a formula, in fact, for that called Sage Intacct query, si.query. And we have our formula called writeback, Sage Intacct writeback, which allows us to update anything. So with those two, we have the ability to make those kinds of updates. So what I've done is we are able to take our departments, put out that query to a table. So Velixo automatically creates this table, shows us here's all the departments, here's the related locations. And then I added a little column for myself to pick. What is the related location? What should it be? Now, of course, because it's Excel, I could pick it once and copy and paste it down if I wanted to update a bunch of them in one shot. And let's say, for instance, I wanted to change a couple of these. So right now, these counseling center youth activities, they're related to Pumpkin Spice Foundation. They should not be. They should be related to Pumpkin Spice for Good, which is the parent company here. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and make these changes on these two and simply click Perform Write Back. And notice line uploaded. So right away, that's done. Now, a couple ways I could see improve that worked. I could click on View Record because I gave myself a hyperlink. And that's going to show me, okay, this is now related to location 1000, as I said it should be. The other thing I could do, as we saw me do before, is I could simply go ahead and refresh my report here. And once this refresh is complete, you're going to see these related values on the left change, right? So now these are related properly, because it's updated the query. So easy to do that. Now, another use case you might have is, how often do we have grant or project information and other people in the organization? I'm not going to call out any specific departments in nonprofit organizations. Don't give us all the information we need to track our grants or projects, right? So we've got all these empty fields for records we've created in the ERP, and we want to be able to update them. Well, again, I can put out a query. So here's my list. In this case, I even have a filter where I've said, here's all my key fields: begin date, contract amount, manager. And I've just filtered if any of these are null, put them in my list, right? So this is skinnied it down for me to just focus on what I care about. Let's say this block grant goes from 4/1/25 through, I don't know, 10/1/26. The contract amount is 4,750,000. And I don't have a manager here, so I'm going to go over to my manager update field and say, this is managed by Ryan Reynolds. And I have this last check I put in for myself, which is, do I want to skip this update? And I'll change that over to no. And this flips to pending. So then all I have to do, again, is click perform write back. And it's done. This last update sent timestamp has updated already to today, so I know that it's done. And if I go ahead and do a refresh, this actually would drop off of my list because it's all been updated. So the easier way for us to review that is I'm just going to go to the record, and then I promise I will give this back to Christian and show you that all those fields are updated within the ERP. And so you see the fields that I updated. Ryan is here. My start and end date are here. And I've got my grant or contract amount, which is right over here. All right, so that's an example of our update anything you want, which is our universal write back. All right, so I crammed in as much as I could with the time that I got, but thank you. I appreciate everybody staying tuned, and I will hand it back to Christian, go back to the slides. I guess we come back right away with a polling question, if I remember right. Yes.
So
There you go.
for the sake of time, I think
Yep.
we're not going to show the results of this. I suspect most folks are on Sage. We're going to move on to the next section here. Can we
Okay.
next slide?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, so well, we have many customers, as we showed earlier on, 2,700, and we have a lot of testimonials, and a lot of customers can really attest the value and the productivity of Velixo. One of our great stories is actually an association called MAD, and they are great fans of Velixo. Tom Roberts has mentioned multiple times that they save a lot of hours on a monthly basis of manual work. And we have other testimonials as well that we can share. And perhaps you can jump on the next slide, Jim. Here, really, we just kind of organize a little bit the library, the non-for-profit template library or gallery, if you will, and organized by persona. Okay, so as you
Christian, I'm
see,
so sorry. We have a half a minute left.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
no problem, no
Can
problem.
Yep.
we move forward to the next slide?
Yep.
So
Yeah,
this is our last polling question. So just want to make sure folks able
okay.
to respond to at least 3 out of the 4. And I think our time is
Mhm.
up. Can we move up to the next slide? Just
Yep.
I wanted to let everyone know we're of course always looking for ideas. And so if you have any feedback, please reach out to us and send your feedback or any future presentation topics to the email address here. And then finally, this is our upcoming presentation for next month. We are going to do the what's new with the R2. So if you're on Sage, please sign up for that. It should be great. And then later in the month, we have a presentation on Vena, and which is a budgeting tool. So you know, if you're interested, please, you know, continue to monitor and sign up for these presentation. But finally, I just wanted to thank everyone for attending. I hope you were able to get something out of it. I wanted to thank the folks from Velixo as well for doing such a great job on this presentation, and wanted to thank both of you. So thanks everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.